My name is Bob Torricelli, and for some 20 years I had the great honor of serving in the United States Congress. During that 20 years, many of us met at different locations throughout America as people in the expatriate community from Iran met to discuss the horrors in their homeland and the unfortunate fate that had befallen their country. I will confess to you, during those years, the possibility of real political change in Iran, the ending of that tyrannical regime, seemed unlikely. A rising tide of human expectation and thirst for freedom is now approaching the shores of Iran. What once seemed impossible somehow begins to look inevitable. The people of the United States, be they of Iranian extraction or other, have a right to organize and be heard. This sanction on the MEK is interfering with that right. It is giving comfort to the government in Tehran, and it is placing the United States on the wrong side of history. There is time to correct it, and I believe in President Obama and in Secretary Clinton, we have the proper leaders to do it.
For Iraq and the United States, members of Camp Ashraf and the PMOI are the best counterbalance to Iranian terrorist and nuclear aggression. As a global terrorist state supporting terror in Afghanistan, all over the Middle East, and now rapidly becoming a nuclear threat and power, Iran must be met and stopped. PMOI has the contacts, the insights, cultural awareness, and a proven past record of providing the United States and hence the world with previously unknown information about Iran. To best make this Iranian opposition effective, the United States must revoke the terror designation, which is now in effect.
The first step has to be the delisting, and that's where I hope we can all work together and make this happen soon. The good news is that my sense from those that I've talked to is that nobody's against doing this. They either don't have the information or they are too busy doing other things. Camp Ashraf, I mean, that again, that's a human rights issue. That is just a matter of security, of moving the right people to secure this camp. Our people work with the government of Iraq to make it happen with the United Nations. You know, find a formula that provides a safety and security for many of those that are in your families. Why can't the greatest nation in the world offer this kind of protection? I think this is something that is very achievable, and we have to work at doing it.
Secretary of State Hillary Clinton expressed support for the tens of thousands of protesters in Iran's capital this week. She said that the Obama administration very clearly and directly supports the aspirations of the people who are in the streets of Tehran. She also spoke of the hypocrisy of the Iranian regime, which had hailed the protests in Egypt but suppressed opposition at home. Well, we need to overcome our own hypocrisy inherent in our policy regarding the Iranian opposition. The State Department maintains the MEK on the list of terrorist organizations. That has the effect of pushing Iran's largest and most organized opposition group, which is feared by the ruling mullahs, out of the political debate. The Iranian regime is now in the enviable position of having the United States designate as a terrorist organization a group of Iranians who are a threat to the regime, thus limiting their activities. As a result, in essence, for the past 14 years, the bulk of the resources of the group has been consumed not in fighting the Iranian regime, but in fighting the consequences of the terrorist designation to get itself delisted. In other words, the Iranian regime now has the great Satan working for it, even as the Iranian people are in the streets demanding regime change.
I believe the best chance for the United States to move forward in its relationship with Iran is to support the opposition in Iran. I'm really puzzled. I do not understand why the United States has kept the MEK on the terrorist list for all of these years. But I am not aware of any facts that require the MEK to be on the terrorist list. Now, as I conclude here, I want to just say a word about this 10-point plan. As I understand it, this is the third option. I've read through that. I like it. I think it's very well done. Support for the ballot box, support for a pluralist system, separation of the church and state, complete gender equality, a modern legal system, support for the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, support for private property, support for peaceful coexistence, support for a free Iran.
Iran's issue is compounded by the fact that the largest organized resistance to Iran's current regime has been put on the FTO list, the MEK. That creates a tremendous issue for making that change. Now, right here, the distinguished Ambassador Dale Daly, when he was serving, when he was in office, recommended that they be taken off. His recommendation was not followed, which in my opinion was a mistake and one that we should rectify immediately. Not tomorrow, today. By placing the MEK on the FTO list, we have weakened the support of the best organized internal resistance group to the most terrorist-oriented, anti-Western world, anti-democratic regime in the region. That's a disgrace. On top of that, we stood by as the Iraqis invaded Camp Ashraf, as has been talked about several times, as they killed unarmed civilians, Iranian civilians living there. Iran's current regime is clearly a government that needs to change. The MEK is the organization that they fear, and that should tell us something right off the bat. But when you look at what the MEK stands for, when their anti-nuclear stance, from the separation of church and state, from individual rights, MEK is obviously the way that Iran needs to go.
If a nuclear Iran is unacceptable, and there are 3 successive American presidents who have said that is unacceptable, and I'm a native English speaker, I think I have a fairly clear understanding of what unacceptable means. Okay? If it is unacceptable, if Iranian decision-making is unable to stop this process, if the opportunity for regime transformation is allowed to pass, then in 2012 or 2013 or 2014 or 2015, we do get to that fork in the road that President Bush warned me about. And who's ever president at that point has only 2 choices. Do something or do nothing. And at that point, those are both very bad.
I know the issue of the MEK is critical to each of you. I tried to understand, when I knew I was going to be part of this panel today, why is it that my government continues to list the MEK as a terrorist organization? I have not found the reason that convinces me. And as a citizen of the United States, and as a citizen in the world, to be able to come here together with you all and to somehow have our voices be heard in Iran, if we, through our actions today and tomorrow, can help encourage and support those who are fighting for freedom than has already been pointed out here today. The inevitability of freedom in Iran will come sooner, and that is well worth our time today and tomorrow and every day until it happens.
So I think the military option, although it can't be off the table, and it just saying it's not off the table isn't enough. It can't be a pure bluff. It has to be something we'd be prepared to be serious about. It means that somehow we have to find a way to change the policy of the people who run Iran. And the best chance for that is by internal change. It is by far the best option. And the United States government should do everything that it can to promote that, bearing in mind that it cannot be an American project. I may have the distinction of being the only person on the dais who's actually been to Camp Ashraf. The United States has made a commitment to the protection of the people who are there. Somehow we have to find a way to ensure that those people are protected and that that commitment is made. It is, as General Hayden said, it is a question of fact. Does the MEK meet the standard for being on the terrorist list, or does it not? I do not have access to all the information. I do have a high confidence that the people who make that decision in the State Department now, and it will ultimately be the Secretary, will approach it from the point of view of what are the facts. And I believe that if they do that, justice will be served.
And finally, I am not pleased with what my country has done with this terrorist list. It is not right, it is not fair, it is not just. But of the many things I believe in through my public career, I'll leave you with this one. Hillary Rodham Clinton. Hillary is smart, she is principled, she is not intimidated, and presented with these facts, the United States, as in the end it always does, will do the right thing. Thank you all.